Today's video I'm going to be talking about Amon Amarth with the Great Heathen Army. The album was released on August 5th, 2022. So this is an album that I know a lot of reviewers have already put out their album reviews already, and I usually try to get my new releases out on, by Saturday morning. This gives me some time to listen to it, and I usually don't have a lot of time on Fridays to record. But anyway, I'm getting this done now. And let's talk about it. So let me give a quick history on the band. They formed in 1988, and they were actually a grindcore band at first, which is very interesting because it's very different than what they're doing right now. And after that, they recorded some more albums under the name Amon Amarth, which was the melodic death metal style. They were kind of labeled as Viking metal because they talk a lot about that like Norse mythology. But they kind of always say that they are a death metal band or a melodic death metal band. So the first time I heard this band, I think was probably the album that a lot of people heard when they first started getting into this band. And that was Twilight of the Thunder God. And this was very unique because it did kind of remind me of like some classic heavy metal because like the riffs were kind of like, I always thought of like Painkiller era Judas Priest. But with those like very like harsh vocals, very like fast rhythms. And the songs they were kind of catchy as well, but they were like super heavy. So I think this is a good band. If you're not really familiar with death metal, just check out this band. I also like listen to their other stuff like Jom's Viking when that came out. When Berserker came out in 2019, I was listening to that one a lot. And that brings us to 2022 with the Great Heathen Army. So on this album, what do you get? You got 9 songs, 43 minutes. Most of the songs are in about like the 5-minute range. So you get their signature sound. So you got the vocals where it's just those like harsh, like very like deep vocals, death metal style, kind of like guttural, almost like a Cannibal Corpse type of vocals. But they are also understandable. They're not really like super like deep, but very harsh vocals. The guitar riffs, super melodic. Now, I always think of a band like Iron Maiden where they play like these like really melodic lead guitar riffs, but at the same time the rhythm guitar plays these really chunky, almost like thrash metal riffs. So you almost find yourself singing along to the guitars instead of the vocals. Like the vocals are more for that like grit, that heaviness, but the guitars, they bring all the melody into the riffs that they play. And that's something that I really liked about this band. Now, as far as the drums, they can go from either like a standard drum beat to the blast beat. So sometimes they get really fast, the really heavy beats. Other times it's just like the standard beats. The songs aren't always like super fast. I think on this album in particular, they did kind of like slow it down a little. So that's why I was saying before that this is more of like an accessible album, probably a good gateway, for somebody new to the band. So the album opens with "Get in the Ring," and this is just a very standard Amon Amarth type of song, just that very like testosterone-filled, just macho type of feeling to it. It's called "I'm Getting Ready to Fight." Are you scared? Will you run? Those types of lyrics, and it's good. It's not a super fast song. The riffs are very melodic. So the next song, the Great Heathen Army, this one has those like chunky guitars, like dun-dun-dun, 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 and also has a melodic lead. So this one, again, it's a little has kind of like a plodding, slower feel. But another one is more like a headbanger as opposed to the first song, which is more of the like melodic side. So this is a good song. By the time you get to the third song, it kind of goes into more like this like folk metal or like a power metal territory. I'm thinking of a band like Sabaton, where it just has more of that like really melodic type of intro, kind of like more of like a happier feel. But then they go into those thick, chunky riffs, like those gallops, like dun, 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 dun. You get a lot of that on this album, and I like how they did kind of change the pace a little on this song. The first song was very melodic, then it kind of had like that heavier, darker song, and then by the third song, they kind of like make it a little happier and upbeat. So that was pretty cool. So by the time you get to the fourth song, it's called Odin Owes You All, and this is where they get really heavy. They start to bring in those blast beats. They have those really heavy galloping riffs. And this is has a sound more like their maybe like Twilight of the Thunder Gods album, that type of style, where it is a little heavier, it's a little faster, a lot more energy into it. You know, has a really great sound. The vocals are a little harsher, and they kind of like remind you that, you know, this band is still around, they're still doing what you know, even though on this album they are cutting it back a little as far as the heaviness. Right? They want to make it a little more accessible, maybe bringing like a little bit more of a new audience, you know. But they're still a heavy band, so that's what they're giving you on this fourth. You get to the middle of the album, and this is where you know, they start to get a little more of that more accessible sound. It has that nice like gallop. The guitar riffs, very melodic, not very complex. It's not very like a technical band, but it's just the kind of guitar riffs that you're going to sing along to. And this is just one of those like raise your fist and fight kind of songs. You know, even the chorus is like stand tall and fight. In the background it goes and fight. You know, it's that type of, you know, we're getting ready to go into battle type of song. And this is just typical for this type of album. You do get a lot of that, those themes of, you know, we are the great army, we're going into battle. And also kind of reminds me of like Man of War at times. I think this is almost like an album where they're kind of like going a little towards like that Man of War type of thing, where it is kind of cheesy, but it's still very enjoyable. Jump ahead to the one song that stands out the most on the album, and it's called Saxons and Vikings, featuring Saxon. So it has Biff Byford from Saxon, and I think this is one of the the only song on this album, and maybe like their only song, I don't know, but and there are other albums, but it's actually a duet where they have those like harsh vocals, and then Biff Byford comes in and he sings in his, you know, like Saxon classic heavy metal style. So I thought that was pretty cool, and being that it is about the Saxons, who else other than the band Saxon to talk about it. And I also think this is one of the best songs in the album. I'm actually surprised they didn't release this one as a single, because it just has this really nice gallop to it, like really cool, and it's one of the heavier songs. Now this band, I haven't mentioned this yet, but they do a lot of that like tremolo picking, and they do that. It's very common in death metal, but what this is like, where they're picking like this, and they create a lot of like melody by doing that like tremolo picking. So you do kind of get that like heaviness of that like classic death metal, but also like a lot of melody, and this band does that very well. The second to last song is called Skagool Rides with Me, and this one is just more the same. It has those like chunky riffs, those like gallops, the melodic lead guitar riffs, those drum beats where they do go into blast beats a while, and the heavy vocals. So there's not really much to say about this one. It's a decent song. But now the last song was pretty cool. It's a 6-minute album closer, which is, I guess, not a very long song length, but this is the longest song on the album. And I mentioned Man of War before, but I think this one reminded me a lot more of Man of War. So it starts like a typical Amon Amarth song with those like, you know, chunky riffs like doo-doo-doo, and then those like melodic leads. So kind of pretty much all songs start like that. But then they do this like spoken word part where it's like, there's a crack in reality, inside there's a hidden veil. It's almost like he's kind of like getting ready to tell a story. So I thought that was pretty cool, and it's a decent song. You know, it goes on for 6 minutes. It's, you know, not too long, but it's a nice way to close out the album. So now what do I think of this album? On a positive note, I think it's just very accessible. So this is a good gateway album if you haven't ever listened to melodic death metal or death metal. It's just 9 songs. The songs aren't like very epic in length. There's not like a lot of changes. The songs do kind of have a lot of similar characteristics. Like they don't really go into different territories. They don't experiment. They're just playing their sound. On a positive note, the songs are just super melodic. I mean, like these riffs, you're going to be playing them along in your head. You're going to just memorize these songs. But at the same time, I don't really think there's anything that stands out on the album. So that's kind of one of my negatives, is like there isn't like a really great ballad. There's no like short instrumentals, no like interludes, which sometimes we complain about that when bands do it too much. But this is just a very like straightforward type of album. It's nothing like out of the ordinary, nothing special, but it is very good. I'll give this final score a 7.5 out of 10. You know, it's not groundbreaking. They're not doing anything, new, but it's a decent album. There's just 9 good songs. The high point is Saxons and Vikings, because that one does have the band Saxon. But the other good songs, Get in the Ring, that was a decent single. The final song, The Serpent's Tail, I did enjoy that one a lot. So it is a decent album, so let me know in the comments section what we'll be talking about, the new Soulfly album called Totem. And I thought that was pretty good. So thanks for watching. Remember, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.